All right, welcome to a Mark Reviews how-to, and as promised I'm going to show you how to change an old bike tire because I have these new ones that I ordered online that finally arrived, and you can see how it's kind of floppy and doesn't hold its shape at all. Now, first things first, you got to figure out how to take your bike tire off. And any standard bike tire is going to have a spoke through it. Well, this side doesn't have the little clamp, so I'm going to turn this around so you can see it. All right. So you can see this little lever here on this one. Right here. Okay, so you're going to lift this thing up, and it also works as a little wrench, so you can turn it a little bit to take some of the pressure off. And you want to check. Sometimes you'll need to disconnect your brakes. There we go. So that's nice and wide there. This is still a little too tight. There we go. Now you can just set the rest of your bike to the side. Now, as you can see, this bike tire is fully inflated. So the first thing that we'll want to do is deflate the tire a little bit. Okay, and that can be done pretty easily. You just find your stem for your inner tube. You want to save the cap somewhere. And then if you buy just one of these kind of standard, this is called a Bell Stopper 500 bicycle tube repair kit. So this is like $4 or $5 at Walmart. And this is going to include a couple things that we need. First things first, they give you 3 of these. And this is what we're primarily going to use as our tool when we're changing the tire anyway. But you'll notice these little knobby things on here. Those double as a great tool to be able to let the air out of your tire. So on that stem that we found here, just going to kind of poke that middle part. Now I had overinflated these tires to about 80 psi, so there's a lot of air in there. Okay? And then it's not critical that you get every tiny amount of air out of there. You don't have to get it all out. You just have to get enough that you're going to be able to pull this tire off. So you can see it's nice and flat now, right? Not springing back, not responding very well. So the fact that I can do this with my fingers is probably not great. But you'll see there's kind of this bead here, and this is why I'm replacing these tires. You see how the sidewall's kind of coming apart? So in the event that it's difficult, you see how this tool that you got has a little hook here on the end. So you'd shove that in there under that bead and then just slide it along the tire like this. See how this kind of coming off? Okay. Then it might get tricky because you have it halfway off your bike rim, but if you've deflated your inner tube enough at this point, you have to watch for the stem and make sure you get that pulled out, but you can just go all the way around. Ta-da! So there's the rim, and we're keeping that because it's fine. Here's my crusty old tire, and I'm going to save the inner tube if I can. Ooh, that's something I hadn't counted on. I may need a new inner tube because this is so old and used, and that inner tube was in there so tightly that it's actually stuck to the inside of this cracked old tire. There we go. It's just being stubborn. All right. So the inner tube's still working fine. It still holds its air just fine. Depending on how old and dried out your tire is, I guess your inner tube might be stuck to it. So you can kind of see how I'm just prying it apart here. I'm pulling the tube out. Yeah, see that part of the old rubber is on that inner tube. Okay, now the reason I'm changing my tires at all, I mean, aside from the fact that these old tires that were given to me had started to wear out and that they were old in the first place, the sidewall is starting to separate, this bead here. So there's a possibility of this just pulling out of the rim as I was on a bike ride. And then, more alarmingly, not on this front tire, but on my back tire, my inner tube was starting to protrude out through the sidewall. So I was maybe a ride or two away from having my tire explode while I was on my ride. Okay, so, you know, I think the inner tube's just fine. It's still holding air. And when you have it in this state, it's a good idea to take even a little more air out than we did previously. Because now what we need to do is pair this inner tube with our bike tire. Now, this standard mountain bike that I have has 26-inch wheels. So the tires I got, you can see right on there, 26 by 1.5. So these are not, you know, true road bike tires, but this is slick tires for a mountain bike setup. So you want to start kind of feeding your inner tube in there, and the beading on your tire will naturally kind of want to come back together. So it'll hold on to the inner tube. Now it's not going to be perfect, because once you start pumping this up, it'll fill this up a little bit better. Okay. So you can see how it looks like there's some slack here in the inner tube a little bit. That will go away shortly. Okay, so just kind of roughly get your inner tube in there. And if I'm doing this wrong and you're like a pro cyclist, let me know in the comments below, because I am very much self-taught with YouTube tutorials just like this one. So you'll want to find the spot on your rim where there's a hole for your stem to go through. Okay, there we go. And now what I like to do is make sure that the bead on the new tire nestles nicely inside the rim on the back side. And you can do that with your hands, because at this stage everything is nice and floppy. You haven't inflated anything yet. Okay. So far so good. Now it might get a little tricky. Ow. So I just got a thorn stuck in my finger that was in my bike rim. All right. As a side note, you want to wear some clothes you don't really care too much about when you're doing this stuff, because you're going to get all kinds of road grime and tire rubber scuffs on your clothes and on your hands. Okay? So actually, this one worked pretty nicely. I was able to go all the way around pretty much by hand. So you can see, as we look around, right, pretty well distributed, pretty evenly distributed. And that bead on the side wall of the tire is inside the rim. So if you can visualize this, right? This is the bead from your inner tube, and this is your rim. You want them to kind of lock in like that, because then as your inner tube starts to inflate, that's going to pull in and be nice and tight. Okay, so at this stage, last thing to do, and I should have gotten it before, right off camera here, you're going to want a bike pump. Okay, and you don't need to inflate it completely until it's on your bike. You're going to want to make sure that everything's inflated properly. All right. Everything's attached properly too. So if you've done your job, and so far, as I told you earlier in the video, I normally go up to 80 psi. on my tires. This one's only at 20, but it's holding its shape nicely. So before you go through all the work to fully inflate it, you want to visually inspect it on both sides. Make sure that that bead has locked into place. Your stem is still nice and tight. And it looks good. So reveal that to the camera here. You can see how it's nicely aligned all the way around. It's weird to have nice new tires. I never have. This is a first for me, except for when the bike was brand new. Okay, so now that I have it pretty well inflated, not as tight as I did before though, I'm gonna bring my bike back over here, and the fork right now has no tire in it. So I'm gonna go the same way that I did before. This is all made easier if you have a bike repair stand at your house, but I do not. Okay. All right, so you do all the steps in the opposite order. So I just slid it onto that axle that we had there. Now I'm tightening it. Okay. Now you can see that that's on there. I'm gonna get one more. Okay. All right, so now probably have to readjust my brakes afterward, but that's a different how-to. So now I have a new tire on my bike. Give it a spin here. There you go. Evidence of that I need to adjust my brakes there. The brakes stopped it. So I'll show you one more time with the brakes off. There we go. And that's it. That, in short, is how you change a bike tire. But if you're doing your math, I'm only half done. So I'm going to do the other one now. Same process. Figure out how to take your tire off and or take your wheel off, and then take off the old one. Reuse your tube. Put on the new tire. Okay, that'll do it. Like I said before, if I did something wrong, leave me some comments in the section below. I'd love to learn tips for how to do this even easier. And check out the other how-to videos I've done on this channel. Be sure to subscribe. Thanks.